Welcome to
House of Whimsical Terror.
I'm Esther.
I'm Mary.
And we're coming to you today from Tucson, Arizona.
And we're telling real stories of the fantastical.
All of our stories are true or told to us as true.
Occasionally, we alter names to protect privacy.
And we do the same for some of the places.
And today's story is about
pre-death visions. And I'm very, very excited about this topic and about our guest. Whitney is an old friend of mine. Well, she's young, but we've been friends for a while. She's a wonderful theater artist and actor. And Whitney Woodcock is here with us to tell us some of her stories. Some are personal and some are, experienced through the really wonderful work she does.
And this is exciting. This is a topic that I am not very familiar with.
And
not a lot of people are.
Yeah.
It's a topic I'm familiar with, but I have stories I cannot tell. So when Whitney told me about the stories, I don't know the stories, I haven't heard them yet, but about the topic, I went nuts. So, sorry, Whitney, I'm going to turn it over to you.
You've heard them. I told you a little bit at the party. I'm getting my Master of Social Work from ASU, Arizona State University. Yay, Sun Devils. I'm not allowed to say that because this is Tucson, but
I support you.
Thank you. And and we do 2 internships in the field, and so last year mine was in hospice, and so doing hospice social work, and because it's just something that's kind of interest to me, and I like working with older people, and that's pretty much what it is most of the time, and and the patients are just so sweet, and they have great stories, and it's just really interesting, and and so pre-death visions is something I started hearing about, and we would have meetings with the nurses and stuff, and the nurses would be going over everybody's status that week and stuff, and they'd be like, oh, so and so is probably starting to transition, or which means die, and they would say because of various things they're not eating as much, and they're breathing has changed, and they're losing a lot of weight, and they're having visions of their dead, mother, partner, whoever. And I was like, wow. Whoa, we're just talking about this in a medical meeting, right? And the nurses and doctors are like, oh yes, the pre-death visions. And I'm like, what is that? Wow. And so I guess it turns out it's this thing that's just kind of a lot of people in palliative care and stuff, end of life care, just know about, and it's not discussed often, which is and even with the patient, I assume probably no, but we didn't tell anybody, oh, you might start seeing visions of your dead loved ones, but it's definitely a thing that was happening, right. And it happens often enough that it's just a thing that people in hospice know about, and so it's not widely studied. There have been some studies, but the estimates of how many people it happens to varies widely, between 20 and 80% depending on the study. So it's and it's I don't know if it's something that's ever been studied asking the person who's experiencing the visions. A lot of the studies are secondhand. Mm-hmm. They quiz the doctors and the nurses, have you ever seen this, and how many times, and what does it look like? And so that's what the studies are like. So it's not widely studied, but it's something that's just kind of known. They just, it's just a thing that happens.
And it would be fascinating to study.
Yeah, it would be. I know. It would be great if somebody would, somebody would do it. I don't know. But, it's just
it must have been really kind of, was it off-putting, or was it wow, that's cool?
No,
we're
it was
in a medical meeting and they're talking about this.
It was kind of cool, actually. I was wow, this is just a thing that happens. And,
wow.
and that everybody kind of acknowledges that this This is a real thing. And it's not just like, what's interesting to me is that it's like a specific type of vision. It's not just like, general hallucinations about just anything, although that probably happens too, but it's like, people see their deceased loved ones in like 24 to 48 hours before they die, and that's just part of the dying process for a lot of people.
Wow. And they speak to them as well.
Yes.
They tell them important information to help others.
Like people receive like maybe messages that they're going soon. Like people will say, "Oh, I'm not going to be here tomorrow morning," and then that happens. Or they'll say, "Oh, my whatever, my mother is here, or my wife is here, and she says she's coming to take me tomorrow," or whatever, and then that happens.
Remarkable.
Stuff like that. And being like an intern, I didn't have like a lot of direct experience with this, because that's the other thing is hospice is just like, it's not just the moments of death. It can be people were on it for 6 months and a year, and Jimmy Carter has been on for a year and a half almost.
Right.
So people can be on for a long time, and so you're sort of helping them through the whole thing, not just the very last moments when this stuff happens. So I didn't see this a lot, but I did see it a couple times. And so
and hospice is kind of a mysterious topic, I think, for a lot of people. It's not something,
I know.
Well, death in general isn't something that our society is very accepting about speaking about.
No.
And then within medical disciplines, hospice itself is such a specialization.
Yeah.
It's probably not. And then to the general public, it's even more mysterious.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, like among the Master of Social Work students who deal with a lot of very difficult things and a lot of, patients going through some real stuff, they would all say to me like, "Oh, isn't hospice hard?" And I'm like, "I think what you do is hard too. Is even harder. I couldn't do that." But it was always like, "Oh, it's almost like, oh, you're doing hospice. Oh, I'm sorry." It's like, no, it's great. I like it. But
how lucky the world is to have people like you.
Well, and I think other people too who do other very difficult things, like people who work with like migrant children or abused children and stuff like that, that I would have a very hard time doing. Yeah. So I'm glad there's all types of people to help all types of things. Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
and it is kind of a calling, hospice. I feel like folks who I've known who go into that field definitely feel called to do it and do enjoy spending that, that time, that transition time with family and their loved one who's transitioning. It's pretty amazing. And the things that they learn in the meantime. We were talking earlier about how, people who are about to die will comfort those around them, which is different than someone who's really sick or has had some kind of serious injury. They just kind of, kick back and other people care for them and take care of them. But it seems opposite when someone is about to transition. They know all the things to say, and sometimes it's because they're hearing it from their loved ones on the other side who have more knowledge. Yeah. Or just that being close to that sort of transition point themselves kind of gives them an interesting perspective on it and makes them realize kind of like, I don't know, maybe like, oh, the things we're worried about are not that big a deal.
Right.
Exactly. And saying all the things they wish they had said.
Yeah.
But you have some personal experience with this.
Yeah. So I forgot one of these things I totally forgot about until we started talking about it again. And then one of the things I wasn't present for, which was my grandpa. But then my sister told me about recently, because there was a great article in the New York Times actually in March, I think, of this year about pre-death visions, and she sent me that, and she was like, "Oh, this is interesting, and this happened to our grandpa." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't hear the story," but because I wasn't living in the same town at the time, but then my sister was, and she said, yeah, towards the end, my grandpa, he had throat cancer, and he was on hospice, and he had the operation where he wasn't able to talk anymore. And so he was just writing notes and stuff like that. But I don't know exactly when. It was in the last few days that he... I'm sorry if I'm going to tear up a little bit. This is personal. Okay. But he... when my sister was there visiting with him, that she said he suddenly just sat up and was reaching out past her and moving his mouth like he was trying to talk, and he couldn't anymore, but he was reaching out and saying something, and she couldn't tell what he was saying, but sorry.
That's okay.
My grandma actually died right before him, which was unexpected. She, we knew my grandpa was going because he had terminal cancer. But a couple months before, my grandma had a stroke, and that was just, unexpectedly passed. And she kind of, I guess they'd been married for 50 years, and this is happens a lot. So, like I said, Jimmy Carter and his wife, and she was not the one who was expected to go first, and she did. And so that happened. And so my sister was like, oh, maybe he was seeing grandma.
Yeah.
And that's kind of awesome. I hope he was.
Yeah. She was on the other side waiting.
Because that sounds really comforting and lovely.
And beautiful.
So, yeah. And, even if it's something that I was saying to my sister, even if it's just something that our brains do as part of the dying process, and, the doctors would say, oh, it's just you're not getting enough oxygen in your brain, and that's what makes these things happen. But even so, how cool, our brains, are this would be a really comforting, great thing to show them. So let's do it. And, it's that's cool. Humans are cool.
Right. We know so little about the brain.
It's
I like to
mysterious.
Love transcends the veil.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I can't tell the specific stories, but a couple of the stories I'll tell without giving anything away. One of them was about a patient who was in a bed, and someone had come in, a hospital worker, and he had lost his stethoscope, but he had lost it before that patient was even in there. And he said, he kept telling him, I know what you're looking for. They're telling me that it's behind that cart. And the hospital worker would pretend to look, knowing that it wasn't behind the cart. And then he would leave, and he knew the man could not know because he was not in there. But he wasn't saying that he knew. He was saying that they're telling me. Mm-hmm. And he was, a few days away from transitioning. And finally, someone else came in, and the man, the patient, said, he keeps coming in looking for a stethoscope, and they're telling me that it's behind that cart. And she had worked long enough with hospice patients to know whoever they were knew what they were talking about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she pulled it out, and sure enough, that was where the stethoscope was. Oh. And another time where, I can't tell the whole story, but there was a man who was being told by the ones he had mentioned, I'm going crazy now. And the nurse said, well, why do you think that? And he said, well, I'm talking to my mother. I've been talking to my mother for 2 days. And she said, I don't think you're crazy. Just what does your mother have to say? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I'm not really sure. And without telling the whole story, what they told him was something that he needed to tell his daughter that he could not possibly have known because she was keeping it a secret from him, afraid of his judgment.
Wow.
And so when one day, the nurse came in and she saw the daughter outside crying outside of the room and said, what's going on? And the daughter said, oh, he knows. Oh. And he told me it's going to be okay, but there's no way he could know. He said his mother told him.
Whoa.
And there's no way he could have known because it was a big secret the daughter was keeping from him. But the mother said, you need to tell her it's okay before you die. And so those are things that his brain couldn't have known unless the brain also has like
that's true. Yeah.
Wonderful ESP
that's
capabilities.
Right. I don't know.
It's love transcending the veils.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
you had a second one, a person.
I did. It's not. It's it's. I don't want to say it's not as good, but it's just. And this was told to me. This is about my dad's wife, my stepmom, who passed about 12 years ago, and he didn't tell me this. He was very skeptical, and so this is not something he would have noticed or given any credence to. But his like house cleaner who came by a lot and was like a really good friend of the family told me later that like, oh yeah, when your stepmom died, she was seeing angels. And I was like, how, what do you mean? And she said, oh yeah, she would like look up into like the corner of the room and like sort of point at it and like just stare up at the corner of the room like she was really listening to something. And that's what it was. And I was like, oh wow, oh my God. And that was actually the first time I'd heard about anything like that. Cause like I said, it wasn't present for my grandpa, and my sister told me later. And, so, yeah, but so it just, goes to show that these things are like so common, and I'm sure a lot of people have had stories about this, and it's kind of like, to your point where you were saying, oh, the man thought he was crazy, like we should probably be talking about this more so people don't think they or their loved ones are crazy.
And to relax into that and go ahead and listen, because there's probably really important wisdom or tidbits of knowledge that the people around the transitioning person need to know. And if they would just relax and listen to, the loved ones from beyond, they could probably do a lot of good before they do pass.
Ask what they're saying. Yeah, like you said, ask what the person is saying to you.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think if when I continue to work in hospice after graduating, I will definitely make that a point to tell people, this is a thing that really happens, and so don't be alarmed. So
right, exactly.
I think that would be so powerful.
Yeah.
So I wonder how many people just don't say it because they think, oh, people are not going to take me seriously because now I'm seeing dead loved ones, so I'm just not going to say it. So the research around it doesn't really capture all the times someone might have been talking to that, because they might just not say it out loud to a nurse or
could be some
another
stigma
hospital
around it.
Well, I imagine there would be, especially if you don't want people to think you're something's not right.
Something else is happening. Right.
So that you keep it to yourself, or you don't want to scare people, so you keep it to yourself. But if someone asks you directly, with an open ear, you might be more willing, a researcher, you might be more willing to say, actually, I talked to my brother last night, and he's been gone since, 1955 or whatever.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. I find people at the end of life kind of lose some filters a little bit too. So I don't know. I find that they're willing to say just like, talk about a lot of stories that, are kind of like, oh my gosh, why is she telling me this? But but maybe you might be right about like not being wanted to be thought of as crazy or something like that. That does.
Like, probably. They're getting loopy, their brain's going, and they know their brain isn't going.
Yeah.
But they're also like, why am I talking to my great grandpa?
Yeah.
But what a beautiful thing to be able to do, and so really to equip someone with the possibility of that would be I would think very empowering, very powerful.
Yeah, and then they know it's coming, and they're like, oh, it's this thing, and not be scared of it.
Yeah,
precisely. Not
embrace
to be scared
it and use it, because it seems really useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do have one more kind of interesting thing, and I'm going to try and keep as many identifying details out of this as possible, but because this was a patient, but it's a 90-something-year-old man, and he was like he was Irish Catholic, and he was from the East Coast, and he's I'll just call him the professor because that's kind of what I called him, because he was also a therapist, which is what I'm kind of training to be, and he would like, tell me like tips about it and stuff, and be like, and when, you have to watch the family for this and this and this, because he was a family therapist.
Oh,
it's
wow.
like, okay, thank you, professor. And, and so he was, and the other important thing is he used to teach in a South American country.
Okay.
Wow.
And so, and so he passed, in like March, I think it was, and my supervisor had kind of like texted me being like, okay, we're going to go see him, and he's transitioning, so he's not going to be himself, because he was very lucid right up until shortly before he went. And so, and we went into this like nursing home where he was, and in his room, and he was speaking Spanish.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that's interesting. And he would kind of like get a little frustrated when we didn't respond in Spanish a little bit, because he really enjoyed, and I found out from his wife, he'd enjoyed South America so much, and that was like his second home, and he would have stayed there if he could forever. And so he was like going back to a language of a place where he was really happy, or maybe somebody from beyond was speaking that language to him from there. And I think probably so, because then he started, so he was saying stuff in Spanish. I'm not very good at Spanish, but he was, saying, oh, abrazos, por favor, like, I want a hug.
Yeah.
And, some stuff like that, and just, ¿quién están aquí? Asking who we were and stuff, and then, he remembered us, who we were, and then he was saying, like, who's outside talking about me? And we're like, nobody outside. And then my supervisor was like, oh, there's somebody in the next room has their TV on. He's just hearing the TV and misunderstanding what's on the TV. But he was like, no, somebody's out there saying they're going to kick me out of here. And he thought, and my supervisor thought, he was talking about, oh, he's worried they're going to kick him out of the care home where he is, or like, move him to a different room or something like that. And she was like, no, they're not gonna, nobody's gonna kick you out of here. And I realized so afterwards, like, oh, maybe he was hearing somebody say he's not going to be on this world for much longer.
Right.
That's what he's going to be. So if they're saying he's going to leave, he's going to be leaving here. That's what was happening there.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that was, so there was somebody out there saying something to him, like you said.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody from the Spanish-speaking part of his life in the past. And so that was kind of one of the eerier ones. Yeah. Because first off, we weren't expecting him to go in and he'd be speaking Spanish, and kind of like being like, why aren't these people speaking Spanish to me?
Right.
But also to be like hearing something, I don't know what, and something telling him something, information that he, and then I think the following day or two was when he passed. So that was really interesting. We just kind of sat with him for a while, and he was kind of like sort of experiencing terminal agitation, which is sort of where they do a lot of movement at the end. That's another one of the signs that they tell you about is, people kind of shuffling their feet or moving around, terminal agitation. And then sometimes there's terminal lucidity, which is where they suddenly kind of like where they were kind of like distant for a while, and then suddenly they kind of like snap back into the room and are like, oh, wow, and just all the lucidity comes back, and they're suddenly like, really with it again. And then sometimes the loved ones will be like, oh, they're getting better, but then you kind of have to say, no, that was just the terminal lucidity. That's kind of one of the things that is a sign that they're going to be gone soon. So
wow,
yeah. And so he was, we sat with him for a while, and he was kind of having all those things. But I didn't often get to, really like be with someone that close to the end like that much, only a handful of times. So that's the other thing about hospice is, like I said, it spans like the last like several months of the lifetime. So it's not all just like the person comes on and they're like definitely about to go very soon. That's kind of a misconception. But so this doesn't happen as often as you might think, but it still happened a number of times, and was very
enough to be significant.
Yeah,
and to have be something that's known.
Yeah.
But even these terms that you're using and these experiences that you're describing of the process of transition, there's such mysteries,
Yeah, like why does that happen?
Yeah. And why don't people know about these things?
Yeah.
I mean, what a remarkable area of study that would be.
It's really, really interesting. Yeah, and I think everybody kind of has different experiences of the process. And, and the point of hospice is also to kind of have them have a good death. Exactly. And so one where, with my professor, my Spanish-speaking professor, one of the nurses said he had a good death because he was in control, which he liked to be. And he got to dictate what happened, kind of, and
that's wonderful.
To the extent that he could.
Yeah.
And so that's what you like to have, and not one where it's just like, the families are like, oh no, don't give them morphine, don't do this, and or just in a state of panic. Mm-hmm. You want it to be a good experience for the dying person, and that's what we all want. I mean, I think that type of death is what I would want to have too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People who care about you around you, even if they're, not necessarily family, but people who care.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's family of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or people who work in a hospice and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that.
Yeah. So.
Remarkable. Those are remarkable and personal and powerful stories, and I'm so honored that you're here sharing them with us, and really
thank you.
An opportunity for our listeners to also go on this journey with you and to hear more about an area that is really not something that we don't talk about it, right?
Yeah. No,
so
really not.
That's really special to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And I learned many things. So.
Well, good.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Whitney.
Thank you.
That was great. You're a great storyteller.
Yeah,
thank you.
And among other great things.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us. And please come back and listen to more stories and share them with your friends. But for now, so long, good friends. Until next time, when we meet back at the house.